Hi, hello. Just waiting for the red button. Just waiting for that evidence and proof that I am indeed live. Who's with me? Wednesday live at 5. It's one of my most favourite times of the week. And I'm not ignoring you, I'm not being rude, I'm just checking on my phone to make sure that we are indeed going live in the right place. Right. Thank you, Tony and Nicola. You are preempting the next bit, which is if you're here live, give me a wee hashtag live in the comments. And if you're getting me in replay, put a wee hashtag replay. I know there's quite a few of you that couldn't make it today, and that's all right. Not everybody has the ability to jump on and listen to me sharing my knowledge and skills at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Right, here we are. So today, my lovelies, we are talking about a huge topic. And this is a huge topic for a lot of women. And hopefully what I go through today is going to benefit you all in some way or t'other. Now, if you have any specific questions as we're going through, please put them in the comments. I have got the comments here. You can't see where my finger's pointing. It's just there. There. So I'll answer them as we go. And then if you do have any further questions afterwards, the lovely Clara, aka Claire, so confusing now that she's got a new Facebook account, are doing an Ask Us Anything at 2 o'clock on Friday. So if there's anything further, we will always answer your question and we want you to get that from us. Okay. So self-sabotage is a huge topic. So I'm not going to be able to cover everything, and I'm not going to be able to resolve your self-sabotaging behaviours in the space of half an hour. One of the reasons why people come and work with us is because they've had self-sabotage in the past and they don't know how to overcome it, and there is no one size fits all, but the training that I'm going to go through tonight is going to give you an understanding of why you might do it and give you some tools as to how to manage that. So it's a bit of a beast of a topic, so you might want to grab a notebook or just have something to scribble with. And as with always, the only way you'll get benefit is if you take action. So if you do experience self-sabotaging behaviours, then and you want to stop it, then just saying I want to stop it isn't going to stop it. Okay, so you have to actually absorb and implement. Now, sabotage is something that many women experience, and it can come in many different ways. So it could be like you do really well for a certain amount of time, you lose a bit of weight, you get stronger, you feel fitter, etc., but then gradually go back and revert back to old habits. That's probably the most common thing that we see. Or another, this is actually hugely common, I couldn't even tell you which one's more common now though, is knowing what to do, but not actually able to do it. So you've maybe done 100 diets, you've read all the books, you've done all the webinars, you've done everything, you know everything, you've been to Slim World, you've been to Weight Watchers, you know the fundamentals of fat loss, how it works, etc., but can't get it right for you. And that is hugely common. In fact, I was talking to a girl earlier today she's like, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I know what to do, I'm not doing it. Why am I not doing it? Okay, so, and it can come in many different forms. It could come in from, you might notice you maybe procrastinate over certain things, like, oh, I'll start again on Monday, and Monday never comes. Or it's maybe you get really angry and frustrated about something, work, family, whatever, and your automatic reaction is to go for shit food, especially if you're doing really well. It could be, and this sounds really bad, that actually using the term self-sabotage in some instances actually isn't beneficial in any way whatsoever, because the failure, and I'm just using the word failure in inverted commas there, very often comes about from boredom or lack of inspiration or impatience, not seeing results quick enough. And this is very common, especially for you girls in your 40s who have never really had to worry about dieting or weight loss in your 20s or 30s, because you would be used to, just keeping an eye on your intake, just maybe reducing carbs or maybe increasing exercise for a few weeks, and then boom, all of a sudden, you've lost half a stone without really having to try, and then when you hit your 40s, that doesn't work anymore. But by putting a tag on that, when it's actually just boredom or impatience, by putting a tag on that, starts giving us permission to feel like we can then can succumb to self-sabotage. But it's actually just boredom, or it's actually just impatience. So true self-sabotage is actually a lot deeper than, just going, I'm so fed up of these meals, or I'm so bored of being good, or I really just fancy a big binge, or I just really fancy, that would be really good. I've been good all week and I'm just going to have all this unhealthy stuff. It's not, might not truly be self-sabotage. But anyway, just think about that if you do experience those behaviours. And I even as I'm saying this, I can visualise it, about 30 women that I have spoken to in the last couple of months going, So the whole experience with dieting is that it's really easy to jump from diet to diet. It's really easy to jump from, well, I'm doing Slimming World because it worked for my pal, or I'm going to do this 10-day shred, or I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And it's all these very tactical things, like if I'll just follow this plan, it'll work. But that's fundamentally the problem is because there's a huge difference in knowing what to do and being told what to do. And then it's a huge step to then creating something consistent that's going to work for you for the rest of your life. And that's the scary thing. And that's sometimes where that self-sabotage comes from, is coming from fear of failure, also sometimes fear of success, which is a whole different topic in itself. But yeah, there's a huge difference between knowing what to do and actually knowing what to do. Okay, so we all have this opinion that we just eat less and move more. That's all I need to do. And scientifically, yeah, that's the principle of losing weight as a calorie deficit, which is science. It's less energy in, more energy out will create a deficit. You'll lose fat that way. And that is how diets work. That is how weight loss works, regardless of how you do it, whether it's keto, fasting, Slim World, Weight Watchers, whatever. But success comes down, true success, where we reach a goal and we stay at the goal. There's no chopping and changing. There's no going back to old habits. It's just a change that sticks. That always comes down to psychology, habits, mindset. Okay, not the actual tactics, because tactics only work short term. So one of the big things that I hear is, what if this doesn't work? What if this just is another failed diet attempt, right? So for a bit of context, when we work with our clients one-to-one, it's a significant financial investment, right? So naturally people go, well, how is this any different? Or what if this fails, like everything else that I've tried? And it's a hugely, hugely valid question. But one of the things that stop people succeeding in the first place can sometimes be that whole, if I do this, I'm scared of what that means for the future. Like, what does that mean? I have to give up my Friday night wine? Does it mean that I have to give up my comforting of emotions with food? And that's going really quite deep. Nobody ever thinks that, but when we dig a little bit deeper, it is often things like, well, I have to change my behaviours and that's going to be hard, and I have to change my lifestyle and I don't want to, or this expectation that suddenly the entire family has to be on this lettuce diet, which is not the case at all. But very often the self-sabotaging behaviours are a reaction to an emotion or an event, and that has become our escape. That has become our way of comfort, it's become a way of satisfying or dampening down on something or quieting our mind or stopping us feel disappointed or regretful or, all of these negative things that sometimes we don't actually ever want to come out. We don't want to have to think about them. We don't have to want to deal with them. Very often food, alcohol, recreational drugs can be, or even over exercising in some instances, are the things that are keeping these things suppressed. And we keep them suppressed by using things that almost aren't helpful for us. Okay, so these are all these roadblocks, all these things are all emotional. Sometimes it's frustration, disappointment. I'm just thinking of all these emotions that we feel that are almost negative. But if we want to move forward, if we want to have true success and create a permanent transformation, then this pattern isn't serving us. It's not serving us at all. It's not going to make long-term change easy because it's going to be a constant battle. And when we have this doing really well, it's gone crap. Doing really well, it's gone crap. That in itself feeds negativity to us. It's all the subconscious are going, why can't I get this right? I'm broken. I can't do this, and this isn't for me, and this is just another failed attempt, etc., etc., etc. But we have to understand, and I want you all to understand, and this is me giving you a little bit of tough love here, that inner saboteur isn't a third person. It's not a third party. It's you. Therefore, it's controllable by you. And sometimes this is what I mean by using the word self-sabotage or saboteur. It's almost putting a big label on it so that we've got a reason to continue with it. Oh, I just keep sabotaging myself. But the sabotaging ourselves becomes a different entity. And instead of taking control of it and saying, no, I'm not going to let that happen anymore, we need to really, really dig into why that is happening. Why is that happening? And people have different feelings, that have different rationale or different definitions of what self-sabotage is, right? So if you're somebody that is eating chicken, rice and broccoli 4 days a week and just water and you're no caffeine and you're exercising every day and you're not having any wine, you're not having any crisps, and then by the time you get into Friday and you have the crisps and you have the wine and you're going, I sabotage myself. No, you haven't. That's not sabotaging. That is just simply, you've just not got consistency in place. Because if you were to then introduce a packet of crisps on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, by the time Friday comes, you probably wouldn't really care. If I've not had crisps, I'll just have another packet of crisps like I've had all week. That's what I mean by consistency. Consistency is not being 100% perfect. Consistency is being able to have a lifestyle where you can dip in and out, go out for a bit of cake with your pal, go for lunch, and know exactly what to do to remain in your calorie deficit, or know how to accept being in a calorie surplus for a day, but know how to moderate for the next couple of weeks. It's not the perfectionism culture, which a lot of our 40s have when it comes to weight loss, isn't serving us. And that in itself is a big cause of self-sabotage, because we have to feel a bit. And there we go. Sarah's talking about being perfect. She's either perfect or throwing it in the fuck it bucket. And that's not life. We're not able to live our life being perfect. And that's why we have to give ourselves some allowances and some healthy boundaries when it comes to what is acceptable in our lives. And for me, it's not I know I would probably lose more body fat if I was eating 1,200 calories a day, which I know I can't do. I could probably do it for 2 days and then I would be absolutely hangry as hell. But I know that if I stick to my 1,500-1,600 calories a day, I might hit 1,800 on a Friday, or one day I might have 1,200, and it all balances out in the end because I've given myself that flexibility and that freedom to be able to have a lifestyle which is more important to me than just eating dust and leaves and being a size 6, because I don't want to be a size 6 anymore. No, it's not serving me. But to Sarah's question, Sarah's asking why. Now, assuming she's asking why does this happen? Well, one reason, Sarah, is you're letting it happen. You're letting it become a thing. And this is where, if you've ever read the chimp paradox, and you think about, in your brain, you've got a chimp who's like that, goes out of control and wants you to just go, ah. And then you've got the adult, which is you, and you can control the chimp. But often we let our chimps take control. And that the chimp paradox is by Dr. Steve Peters, who is the psychologist for British cycling, who did a lot with Dave Brailsford, who was the professional director of Team GB or something. Anyway, very famous sports psychologist. It's a good book. If anybody does have an interest in mindset and psychology, that is quite a good book to get on board with. And there's quite cool pictures of chimps doing. That's quite cool. So yeah, it is controllable, and sometimes we have to ask ourselves, does it matter why I do this? Does it matter why I go through these emotions? Does it matter why I go through these behaviors? Because we can sometimes spend so long worrying about why we do it rather than trying to fix it. Does that make sense? So it's like thinking about, okay, just accept that it happens and it's been part and parcel of your mind for however many years. I'm going, okay, well, what are the steps that I need to take to move forward? And that might mean looking at triggers, and that's where, digging in with a pen and a paper and really going on to, well, when does this happen to me? Does this happen every Friday? Does this happen every time that I speak to my mum? Does this happen every time I'm hungry? Does this happen every time I've had an argument with my husband? Does this happen, when does this happen and how often is it happening? Is it because I've had a shitty day at work? Looking at the triggers can be hugely, hugely powerful, because then we've got data and we have evidence as to, right, okay, we know what happens then, so then I can put plans in place to either change something, do something differently. Another thing that really helps is manage the emotions. Don't hope for it to go away. Don't hope for that fear of failure or fear of success to just go away. It's not going to go away. If you want to have change, if you want to have something different from what you've got now, then we have to do something about it and not just hope and pray that what I keep doing is going to work eventually, because it won't. It doesn't work that way. You're not suddenly going to have the metabolism of a 25-year-old. You're not going to suddenly have your peak hormones back. You're not going to suddenly have an extra 17 hours in a week to do things in. Unfortunately, I wish I could wave my magic wand and make that happen, but I can't. We have to also look at this is one of the things, is what is actually true and what are we making up in our heads. So what is true versus what do we believe to be true? And they are often very, very different things. So you might be saying, well, I always self-sabotage because I don't have any support at home, right? That's not always the case, because we have to understand that, well, actually, I'm an adult and I actually don't need other people to make my decisions for me. So go back to that pen and bit of paper and dig in a little bit deeper and going, okay, well, what is actually fact here versus what is what I believe to be fact, but in actual fact, it's not true. That's something that we do with limiting beliefs as well, which is kind of a side part of this. Looking at, going back to what we can control, we can control our emotions, we can control our behaviors. So if we think about a very common emotion that can cause us to sabotage, stress, right? Or tiredness. And tiredness actually is a form of stress in our body. But anyway, stress. If I get stressed, I always reach for the wine, and the wine always makes me snack. Okay. So look at going, okay, how do I get stressed? I get stressed at work. Okay. And most people aren't going to pull out, they don't go into a meeting, get stressed, and then pull out a bottle of wine out of their desk drawer. Funny story, for those of you that have ever worked with me in 3, and I think there's a few in the group, there was a woman in the Glasgow office that was found, she worked in the call centre part, and Sarah, if you're still listening, you might remember that I'm not going to name her name, but she was found on a Saturday afternoon lying under her desk, absolutely shit-faced. Now, this woman was older than me, so she was like a mum, sensible, good job, all the rest of it. Just found by her desk, shit-faced on a Saturday afternoon. And she didn't get sacked. Anyway, so getting stressed doesn't necessarily mean that we have to get shit-faced. So change that. Change that in your head first and go, okay, if I get stressed, I'm going to go for a big, massive walk with a big ranty podcast or a comedy podcast and have a different approach. Change the steps that you take. And then you're basically then turning emotions into logical actions. So you know that getting drunk and eating the crisps isn't gonna do you any favors. So change it into something positive that will. And the other key thing I think is, who do you want to be in the future? So if you've been in a pattern of self-sabotage for a long time, is this what you want for yourself? Is this how you want to continue living your life? And if the answer is no, which I imagine in 99.9% of cases it is, then start being the person that you want to be. Start making the decisions that you think you shouldn't be making, that you should be making. Start doing the actions that the person that you want to be does. And it sounds really, really easy, but it can be really, really, really difficult. And I get that. And that's why I'm saying, like, this is a huge topic. A huge, huge, huge topic. So I hope you've taken some notes. If you've got questions while I'm live, put them in the groups, put them in the chat just now. You might, as I said, you might think of some different questions, and we've got Ask Us Anything on Friday, which we can cover off. But as I say, this is not like in the space of 20 minutes. I'm not going to solve the issue for you, but I can give you food for thought. I can give you ideas for things for you to think about, and I hope I've given you some of that today. But if you are experiencing sabotaging behaviours and actions and you want help to resolve them, you want to break the cycle, then that's what we can help with. So if you are, ready to actually make the changes that you want to make and become the person that you want to become, then pop sabotage in capitals in the comments, and we can have a quick chat tomorrow, probably not tonight, tomorrow, Friday, Monday, and see if we can help you. And for those of you that know me or that have been in group for a while, you'll know that I'm brutal. If I don't think we can help you, then I'll tell you. If I think we can help you, I'll tell you. Because that sounds really harsh. I'm actually not brutal. I'm actually quite a nice person. But yeah, my goal isn't to pull the wool over your eyes and feed you nonsense. My goal is for you to be the best version that you can be, and obviously if I can help you do that, that's my why, is to help people be the best that they can be, then I will. But as with everything, the action sits on you to actually take the actions to reach the desires. So yeah, that's self-sabotage in a nutshell. Hit me up with your questions if you have any. Let me just see what the comments are as I go through. Sarah, I love the download of your head. Thank you. But why? Okay, right, so in other news, so this is wild. This is new this week. I am just about to launch a journal. It's actually a habit tracker journal progress planner. So yeah, I don't know when it's going to be live. I don't know when it's going to be available for purchase, but I've done it, and I'm putting it to the publishers. So I'll let you know. How cool is that? I'm going to be a published author. How exciting! Okay, so it's time for dinner, or tea if you're in some parts of the world. We had a big discussion. I put together a new recipe pack for our client group earlier this week, and so it's split into breakfast, lunch, and dinners. And this is a good one, so you can actually put down what it is to you. So evening meal. But then I started going, all right, well, I call it dinner, but other people call it tea. Oh, other people call it supper. Oh, no. Other people call it their evening meal. So instead of just calling it one word, I just put them all in. Dinner, lunch, dinner, tea, supper, evening meal, just to cover all bases, just in case. All right. Okay, my darlings, I hope you have a tremendous evening. I hope this has helped. Let me know in the comments if this has helped, yay or nay. Please actually put yay or nay, please, though, because that's the feedback that I need to know whether this resonates, whether this helps. And if it doesn't, I need to know why, because it's the only way that I can get better. And if I can get better, I hope you get better. All right. So have a tremendous, there's Tony, you're a tea girl. You're a tea girl. Fab girl, fab. Right, okay, have a tremendous evening. If you can make us the Ask Us Anything on Friday at 2 o'clock, it is going to be hilarious because Clara wasn't around for the last one. I missed her and I had over 50 comments to myself and it was a bit manic. So it'll be good to have a back and forth for some questions. Alrighty, my gorgeous. I will speak to you later. Bye bye bye. Bye 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 bye. Have a lovely evening. Bye bye bye.